Everything is fine here on Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Michael Mudge, joined by Dustin DeFranco, and we're here to talk, I'm going to say, for the most part, all things Mandalorian. We just got done watching the most recent chapter, which is chapter 19, I believe. Yeah, chapter 19 of season 3.
The Convert.
The Convert. And I think we're recording a little later than normal, but we're gonna
the life of having a wife and kids. but
we're gonna
will still release at the same time.
Right. Yes.
So that's the magic of podcasting.
Exactly. So we're gonna try and push through this. We're gonna cover actually 2 episodes because we haven't talked about chapter 18, which was the Mines of Mandalore. So we'll kind of cover those things. I just want to first call out spoilers. There will be spoilers for both of those episodes. I don't think it counts for chapter 18 because it's been a week for that one. So if anyone's watching The Mandalorian and listening to us, they probably caught up on at least that one, but we're going to get into 19 as well. And I will. Oh, look, it's Ari.
Yeah, he was snoring a little, so I had to kind of wake him up.
Oh, it's okay. Colleen does the same thing to me in the middle of the night, and she
he can snore like with his eyes open. It's kind of creepy.
He can. It's almost impressive though.
You need to give him like a little breathe right strip, you know?
Oh my gosh. If you do that, can you take a picture of that? Or what, a sleep app? Can you get him a sleep app? Can you get him a sleep app? But apologies since we weren't able to record last week. Been traveling and other things getting in the way. So like I said, we're going to bring 2 Mandalorian episodes today. We're not going to talk Bad Batch. We might do that separately at a different time because again, we're getting a new Bad Batch episode released at the same time as a new Mandalorian episode release. But we're gonna concentrate on Mandalorian today. And I do want to first say, because normally we do some news bits, but we're going to kind of avoid that. But there was the newest book released, which was Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars. So I'm looking forward to reading that one in the near future.
YA book?
I don't think that one is a YA book.
It's not in the High Republic era?
No, that's the one that's between Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor.
Sweet. Well, I got some Audible credits to burn.
You need to use it on this one, and I'll read that one after I finish my current book. I'm reading at a faster pace these days, so I might be able to keep up with you at this time.
You're start reading at a very slow pace when your kid is born.
Yeah, but that's not until around June 13th, so I got some time.
I guess we got some news too. I don't think I've been on the podcast since.
You haven't, and I've known, but I didn't want to say anything. So, Dustin, why don't you release some news?
Yeah, another Padawan on the way.
Woo!
October 4th is the due date, and we're not going to find out the gender. So.
Oh, you're not going to find out? Love it.
Yeah, what's the point? It's a 50-50 shot. We're not really a family that, does a gender reveal or anything like that.
I thought you love gender reveals.
On fire. I actually kind of loathe them, and you know that.
I know that. That's why I just played into it.
It's just another thing. And I apologize. I mean, look, here's the thing. You can disagree with me. You can
to each their own, right? To each their own.
To me, it's like it's just something else that just says, "Look at me." I need attention. Just fine. That's what social media is. I just don't need to see it.
Hey, like to each their own, and I totally respect the waiting. That's what we're doing. I think there's nothing much better than the surprise of finding out what, the child. So that's at least the route we're taking as well. So that's super exciting news. I'm so happy for both you and Callie. And I guess our future child's going to have a best friend in your future child. So looking forward to that. Play dates.
Yeah, they say 1 child is 100 and 2 child is 1,000,000 or something like that. So
at least you're still in man-to-man coverage, right?
Yeah, true. But I'm not very good in coverage, so I'm only worried there's going to be some busted coverage. Bennett, our son, is getting to the age where he is like really fighting the establishment.
Okay. Like, I don't know. He was super excited to see Lincoln, though.
Yeah, he was. We sent a video. We're looking after Lincoln while Mudge was gallivanting around Mexico.
Yes.
And, so Lincoln gets dropped off by the time Bennett's already asleep. So he wakes up and there's a new dog in the house. He's like, "Oh my god, this is like Christmas."
I love just like footsteps. They were like,
Yeah. Happy feet.
happy feet.
Yeah, man. But he's talking, but a lot of it's incoherent. So he's like telling us something, but we have no idea what he's saying. So he gets like really frustrated that we have no clue what he's talking about. It happens to a lot of parents. It's just something you work through. But
right,
you know, he's going to like 11 sooner and more aggressively.
That's okay. Kids are kids, right?
Exactly. You work through it, but I'm just saying when there's two kids, hopefully he's at an age where he maybe can talk to the other kid and be like, "Let's calm this thing." I doubt that's gonna happen, but
well, in my experience, I mean, I don't have experience, but I should say in my parents' experience, the first child was the tougher one, and the second child, me, was the easier one. So maybe it'll be easier the second
that's
one
not
around.
necessarily tough. He's just himself.
No.
So I made
Right.
pizza tonight. By the way, I got that solo stove.
Yeah.
And we have like a little attachment that you put on the top. So I used that because it was a nice enough day. Here in Minnesota, it's like in the mid 40s, which is like summertime.
Yeah, that's summer.
Yep. So, so I made pizza, gave it to him, but he's obsessed with like Parmesan cheese, right? So I put like a bunch of Parmesan cheese on his pizza,
Okay.
and he just eats it, which is a mess into itself, right? But then he starts throwing, and I'm like, dude, you can't do that.
That's what dogs are
All the
for.
time, I'm taking it away. And he looked right in my eyes.
One more time. He definitely did it one more time.
And then I took it from him, and he loses it.
Cries.
Like, I told you it was going to happen.
That's what dogs are for, though. They'll clean it up.
Yeah, it's really hard to clean up like gobs full of Parmesan cheese everywhere. And this drives me nuts. Is like you step on it, and it gets on your sock or the bottom of your feet. It's the worst. So I did kind of mess up the pizza today. I should attempt.
I bet it was still good, though. You're such a good cook that your mess up is still probably good quality for most people.
Yeah, I didn't ruin the food, but I did. I moved the pizza too soon, and the peel kind of poked the bottom of the center.
Okay.
Pizza, so there's kind of a hole in the center. It was still good, but
no big bubble.
Well, and you want some of those bubbles, right? But not the really, really big ones.
Yeah, you don't want the big one where it takes up like if you slice it up, if it's taking like 3/4 of the slice, that's too big of a bubble.
Yeah, another problem was we took the dough out way too late in the afternoon. So it wasn't truly thawed when I got home. So I had to kind of, throw it in the oven for a little bit, like on warm for like 5 minutes. And I think that kind of messed with the chemistry of the dough.
Okay.
So next time we won't do that. Anyway, it was still pretty good. And on to Star Wars talk, because I think taking too much of a detour.
It always happens. But as a reminder, we are live, so bring your questions, comments, input, anything to the chat on our YouTube channel. So we'll make you a part of the show just as much as we are, and we greatly appreciate it. So we'll kind of first talk through chapter 18, which is the Mines of Mandalore, and I'll kind of walk through kind of the breakdown. Dustin, if any opinions come to your mind or any thoughts as we talk through this, just speak up.
The name gives me Lord of the Rings vibes.
It did, and even the whole episode kind of gave me the whole episode kind of gave me a little Lord of the Rings vibes. But so it starts off showing a speeder racing on Mos Eisley, and we're told that it's the Bunta Eve celebration. So if you remember from the prequels, we have the Bunta Eve pod racing. This is more of just a speeder racing. And Pelimoto is kind of looking to fix a Rodian speeder. And then Din shows up. So Din shows up with the...
She's a little scammer.
She is. But she's a lovable scammer, though. Like, she has morals to her, but at the same time, she doesn't have morals to her. If you're good friends with her, she's like a loyal friend.
We all have that friend.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So then Din shows up with Grogu on his starfighter, and he's looking for that droid part to repair the IG-11 droid. Because if you remember, he doesn't trust any droids except for IG-11. But Pelimoto says, what's
And I'm
that?
just laughing. I'm just laughing because it took her like 4 seconds to convince him. You know,
It
And
wasn't
even a
it
good
wasn't that
sell.
hard. It wasn't. And you're a salesman, so you know, and that wasn't really that hard of a sell, was it?
I mean, it is when the thing is scripted.
That's true.
I was like, and immediately he drops his quest to. Okay, so my only complaint. I'm not saying my only complaint. I really love the show. I love the first 3 episodes, right? But there's always things that you can kind of nitpick, and it doesn't take away from how good this show is. But
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of rushing some things, you know? Like I thought Mandalore was going to be kind of the penultimate episode. You know?
I did too. I thought that was what we were, building up to. That was almost going to be like a or an episode 7 or 8 of the season, but we're getting to it right away.
Again, it reminds me when I was a kid, I used to love the show Angry Beavers.
Oh, yeah.
There's this huge montage that they did. They were going to go on this really long trip, like on a quest to go get something, right? And they do this really long montage. They get in the boat, they take 2 paddle strokes, and they go, "We're there." And that's what this feels like, because there's a little bit of shortcuts. I feel like they're taking,
Yeah,
and that kind of takes away from the payoff of this episode because you don't have all that build up. And I was really looking forward to seeing IG-11 again. So,
well, and I think and we talked about this. Well, Greg and I talked about this on our last episode. I think you bring up a good point.
Who's Greg? I haven't seen him in so long.
I don't think we've had more than 2 people on an episode for a while, so it's hard to believe that the others actually exist. But we talked about how short that first episode was, and maybe this is something that they could have added on to the first episode because you were definitely world building, bringing back the story because it's been 2.5 years since the last season of specifically Mandalorian. Of course, we had the Book of Boba Fett, which is Mandalorian 2.5, not 2.5 years ago. So we kind of got some in between content, but it's been a while and you wait that long and then you get only little over a half an hour episode. So maybe to your point, bring some of this world building content to the first episode. And then with this chapter 18, kind of get more into the details, but we get what we get. And that's still great. Still a good show. But just to get back to where I was. So Peli and the Jawas say that they don't have the part and it's essentially impossible to find. So, then she goes into the cell of, just take R5. And it takes 30 seconds to convince him that R5 is a good enough or reliable droid compared to IG-11 when Din, we know, has a hard time with droids in the first place. So he's okay with R5, I guess. So Din and Grogu fly out to Mandalore, and Din tells Grogu that he's never been to Mandalore before. And he gives a brief description of what it is, shows him the nearby planets within the system, and explains to him that it's important for a Mandalorian to understand navigation and being able to explore the systems. And I think that's kind of foreshadowing the events that come later in the episode, because eventually Grogu has to, on his own, navigate those planets, get to Bo-Katan, and come back.
I do find the dialogue pretty cheesy. I found it cheesy in the trailer where he's like, "Oh, being a Mandalore, you got to be a navigator too."
Right.
What? That sounds.
Yeah, but you're talking to a kid.
That's like, is it really a kid? Isn't he like 50 years old or something like that?
It's all relative. They age slower.
I used to have this teacher in high school in social studies, and he would go around and he would go, "I love maps," and that was what that reminded me of.
That's fair. But I mean, he is still a kid. I mean, I know he's like 30, 50, somewhere between their years old overall, but I think the aging process is slower. I mean, he's still cooing and, he's not even speaking. So obviously resembling some sort of a kid one way or another. So they enter the atmosphere and it's very stormy.
He's also a kid that's like murdered people too, right? Like,
has he though?
Creature? I mean, he threw that one creature and the creature just went away.
Okay. So this is a key question. In that scene, did he kill that creature?
I mean, or seriously injured it?
Because I'm in a bingo and one of the boxes I have is Grogu kills his first non like eating frog type creature.
Yeah, yeah. So he was killing that too. I don't know. I can't answer.
Would you classify that as his first kill?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I get the box. X gets the square.
It's assumed.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that support.
What
right
else
there.
is? I mean, because then the thing's coming right back.
Well, that's true. That's true. So yeah, they enter the atmosphere and everything's destroyed. And Din explains that communications, they can't go in and out because of the destruction. The atmosphere has been totally effed up. So that means they're on their own.
I don't want to sound like I'm nitpicking. I'm just saying the yin to your yang.
No, that's totally fine.
Like, you would have thought that someone would have figured out that Mandalore wasn't like poisoned so much sooner. You know, like there aren't like smugglers or pirates going. It just seems so ridiculous to me that this secret was kept. You have this, you know.
Well, it's not because Bo-Katan knew
through rumors.
Through rumor, which means someone else has been there and noticed it.
Yeah, again, you feel like it would be
right. You're just saying that it would be more common knowledge in a universe like Star Wars that Mandalore isn't completely destroyed compared to what we're believed is the current situation, right?
Yeah, it's not some backwards planet that doesn't have any history. I mean, it's the birthplace of the Mandalorian people. I just find it hard to believe that Din Djarin's the first one to go there, you know, trying to fulfill this quest.
Right.
But again, that's just a little nitpick and something I can easily move past because I still have that, you know, suspension of disbelief.
Yes, that's fair. So upon landing, Din sends out R5 to get samples and readings of the atmosphere to ensure that it's what?
I was just gonna say it's something that like Family Guy would make fun of, you know. Like in
I'm still waiting for Family Guy's prequels and all other Star Wars content.
Yeah,
I want to see that for sure.
Like I just imagine like, you know, whoever plays, it's probably Peter that plays the Mandalorian. He's like fat armor.
Well, it's got to be.
And,
so
know,
who's Grogu? Like, Stewie? Is Stewie Grogu?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, he just flies down. He's like, "Huh? I'm the only person that hasn't figured this place out as poisoned. Are you kidding me?"
So would Meg be the creature that we'll get to later, or is that too
1000%?
Okay.
I like where your head's at.
But that makes her relevant, and I know they don't want to make her relevant.
Mort would be Moff Gideon.
Oh, that would be awesome.
He was Lando, so.
Yep. Got to cover all those bases. So R5's going out to get these readings, and he ends up disappearing off the scope or radar, leaving Din to go out and explore on his own. He pressurizes his helmet to do so because, again, he's not sure if it's safe for him to be out there. And as he's out there, he sees the Civic Center in ruins. So we've seen that on like Clone Wars and everything. Interesting to see it in live action. And he's encountered by these native or indigenous species that attack him. So kind of what we were talking to with what Grogu kills or doesn't kill. And Din uses the Darksaber again, but is clearly still struggling with it. So I think that's very interesting and very telling in the situation. But he does fend them off using his dagger, and he pushes like some of them off the ledge. And ends up finding R5, and he collects him and brings him back to the ship. They do these readings and discover that, hey, Mandalore is actually okay. It's not poisoned. It's not toxic, and you don't have to pressurize your helmet or anything. So as a result, him and Grogu go back to exploring the caves of Mandalore, and they make their way down to the depths of the Civic Center and run into the mines, which are located at the bottom. So this is what leads into the waters where he's going to redeem himself. So going back to the Darksaber, and him still struggling to wield it. And I don't want to go too far in advance, but we know someone else wields it towards the end of the episode who doesn't have problems with it. So do you think this is kind of foretelling that the saber is not, does the saber have like a recognition where it understands who's worthy of it and who's not? Do you think?
Well, wasn't there that? It was either in there's season 2, I believe. There was that montage where he's training with it, and she's like, you know, you don't trust it.
Yep.
I think it's more of that.
Okay, so it's more to do with him versus the saber. Whereas I'll just say it, Bo-Katan eventually grabs it and is able to wield it a lot better. So she, yeah. Oh my God, which was another box on my bingo card, so I get to check that one off too. But so you're saying that she has a better appreciation or understanding of the saber over Din more so than the saber choosing one or the other.
Correct.
Okay. And I would agree with you on that.
I don't think it's like the sword in the stone, Excalibur.
Or Thor's hammer type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's more, you know, he's not comfortable with it.
Okay. So once they're at the bottom or in the depths of Mandalore, Din, he unearths a deteriorated or an old Mandalorian helmet. It's like it's yeah. Admiral Akbar was in the background. No. And he's like looking at it. It doesn't have its visor, so it's hard to tell if it's just like a broken down one or just one that's so old that it predates like having a visor. But during that time, there's this like mechanical crab.
That was clearly a trap, by the way.
Crab. Right.
So that was there on purpose.
Oh, actually, I never even thought of that. So that's a good point.
Well, because he picks it up and like a net grabs him or something, right? So I mean, it was meant to draw someone in.
No, that's a good point. I never even thought of that, and I think you're 100% right. Can
you say that to my wife? Because
you don't get that often.
100% wrong.
You're right here. So it's like this crab mechanical device droid managed by a creature.
I really wish they explained this thing.
I totally got General Grievous vibes, didn't you?
Yeah,
but obviously it's not him. But
you know what I got? You know what other vibes I got is Men in Black with a little little alien dude in the head. That's kind of what I got. Yeah.
Yep. So this thing captures Din and kind of takes him away, leaving Grogu on his own. Grogu follows to like investigate and looking to try and free him. Come to find out the device is being controlled by this cyborg creature. Like I said, greatly resembles General Grievous. Like the whole mechanical part was like the same as Grievous, but the creature itself was like just the head portion, and it was like just a single eye. So obviously not Grievous. But this creature goes and he
Mandalorians roasting
on an open fire. I mean, again, this is definitely like Lord of the Rings Hobbit vibes when the trolls capture, the hobbits. So the creature, it goes to Din and disarms his blaster and his dark saber. And all he does is just throw it to the ground. It's like, I'm not even going to get rid of it. I'm just going to leave it on the ground for anyone else to take, which becomes important later on. Then, of course, the creature walks away. Grogu uses the opportunity to make his way to Din and tries to use the Force to free him, but is unsuccessful, which ends up causing a lot of noise, which gets the cyborg creature's attention. And then Din tells him to quickly flee, get to the ship, go notify Bo-Katan to come. I don't know if he notified to come rescue him, but that was kind of how I understood that, or just to tell Bo-Katan of the situation. And of course, earlier in the episode, Pelimoto makes reference to R5 being able to navigate systems or fly the N1 starship without a pilot. And conveniently, this is where that plays a part, because Grogu now goes in the cockpit and R5 kind of flies them to Bo-Katan. So anything on that so far?
I mean, pretty standard fare, right? Just a hiccup as they are on their way, kind of an action plot set piece.
Yes,
kind of what you get here.
Yep, and then we're
really explain it, so I don't really have any questions. I mean, I have a lot of questions, but none that they're going to answer.
Right. So then we're taken to Bo-Katan's palace, where her droid advises her, okay, we have kind of an unexpected visitor, and in the background you see his N1 starfighter kind of flying up. And she tells her droid, let's get rid of him once and for all, which made me wonder, like, what kind of getting rid of does this mean? Does this mean kill him? Does this mean like, I don't want you coming back anymore? Hard to tell, because the delivery was aggressive there, but then what ended up resulting was like almost the opposite, because as she's approaching and doesn't know that Din isn't in there, she's like, he must have not understood the first time. She wants to be left alone. And then Grogu kind of pops up and it was like, oh God, what happened to Din and where is he? So it's like you go from one extreme to the next. So obviously she still kind of cares. And essentially she tells Grogu, okay, or no, she tells the droid, check the navigational system. Let's find out where they last were. And we're going to go off to theirs. So I don't know. I at this point, I was kind of having a hard time understanding what Bo-Katan's true feelings were towards Din. Like, is she an ally or is she an enemy? It was hard to tell. What were your thoughts?
She's just frumpy.
She's frumpy. She's just sitting on her throne, kind of.
She's like an emo kid, you know. She don't know what she wants. She's like my kid.
Well, what do you think she wants? Does she want?
She did make that clear.
So she still wants the throne.
No, to be left alone.
Oh, to be left alone. Okay. Do you think she still wants the throne?
No. I mean, well, up until this point, we really don't. I don't get that impression.
Okay. So then Bo and Grogu start retracing Din and Grogu's previous trail or path through the tunnels of the Civic Center of Mandalore. She takes off her like pressurized helmet and you can see her like breathe in, like, you know, it's like memories of the past. And she talks about how it was such a beautiful civilization back in the day and that her family ruled it, but now it's just a tomb. Bo senses that Grogu is frightened and tells him that, like, I need you to be strong because I still need you to guide me. So she then goes to explain that, like, she knows in the past she's known Jedi, that she worked along with the Jedi. They fought together. And I'm looking at this as kind of an effort to make Grogu feel more at ease, that she's an ally. She's not an enemy and she's here to help. Still hard to tell. But then they're encountered by more of these indigenous creatures and she fights them off with her dagger and shield, which that shield was that's the same shield. I think she had that shield back in either Clone Wars or Rebels, one or the other. Yeah. And she asked Grogu if she thought Din was the only Mandalorian, obviously meaning that no, he's not. But I thought that was kind of an odd question because Bo and Din have been together with Grogu along with other Mandalorians. So why ask this question if Grogu should already clearly know there's other Mandalorians out there?
Yeah, I don't know. Me no say. So eventually they come across the cyborg again. And what I was speaking to earlier, Bo-Katan then wields this dark saber and uses it a lot more efficiently than Din used it. Stabs it, which we're led to believe kills it, but then obviously it's not dead. Comes back to life into that crab creature thing, but then she destroys it once again. And this kind of leads us to the final portion of this episode, which is going down to the waters of Mandalore. So she rescues Din, talks a little bit more about Mandalore history and her family's rule and everything. And she's like, all right, let's go. Din is like, no, I have a mission. I'm going to finish it. Bo's like, okay, well, if you're still going, I'm going to join. They get to the waters and she reads him the kind of monument that's talking about the mythosaur, the myth of that, and how it was that location where this creature was captured, I believe. And Din walks into the waters, recites the creed, becomes redeemed, but then as he's speaking the last phrase, gets dragged under the water. He doesn't get dragged.
Well, yeah, what happened there? He just fell, and it's the weight of
extra step and the weight of his armor put him right down. That's what he said in the next episode. Spoiler alert.
Okay. I missed that part. So that's good to know. Cause I thought he was grabbed or something.
That's
It
what
just
they made
seemed
it seem like.
okay.
But he said, I didn't realize the water was that deep.
Okay.
Which makes me believe he just whoop.
That's fair. And
Man,
because he,
what
I
would have
guess he
grabbed
was
the mythosaur. Isn't the mythosaur
right.
supposed to be like an ally or
Well,
something?
that's a good point though, because in that episode, the next episode, Bo asked, did you see anything alive? And if something grabbed him, you would have thought that he would have expressed that.
Well, and when she rescues him, I mean, there's nothing around him. You know, there's no assumption by the audience that he was grabbed by something. That's how they made it seem like what happened, but they did explain it after the fact.
No, I think that's a good point. But Bo dives in after him, pulls him up, and on their way up, so you just see kind of the light from her helmet, flashlight catches a creature, and it starts with like the body, then goes to the tusks, and then kind of focuses in on the eye, which I believe are led to believe that this is the great mythosaur that was being talked about, which is also 100%. The emblem that you see on like Boba Fett, just kind of very symbolic for the Mandalorian people, and many of their creeds. So obviously I have to believe that's the mythosaur. And she's startled by it. You can see the bubbles like, oh my God, what is that? They get out of the water. She takes off her helmet and is breathing heavy. And then the episode cuts out. So again, just kind of leaving you to believe that this is the mythosaur. It kind of leaves it open-ended, like, is it actually there or not? But I have to believe that it actually is. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I want to go to the next episode to explain my thoughts. I really dislike how you have this MacGuffin in the mythosaur, right? This thing that's supposed to tie the overall story together and bring Bo-Katan back to the way, right? And she clearly sees it. And then now, for plot reasons, to extend this story and this MacGuffin, just pretends like she didn't see it, right? She asked, did you see anything? Well, I mean, he fell straight down, right? I really dislike that use of writing where, did you see anything? No. All right, neither did I. Never mind. Let's go about our days. Instead of saying, hey, I think I saw the mythosaur,
Yeah, no, I understand.
Here's another reason I think that's the mythosaur. If you noticed, when she goes into the covert, a spoiler alert, she looks right at the symbol.
Yes. That's a good point. But do you think she could be trying to hide that information to her advantage?
No. I don't think that's what they're trying to do.
Well, I'm not saying they, but her alone.
No.
Okay.
No. She's already been open and honest with Dan about a lot of things. I mean, she even explained the mythosaur story.
Yeah, but in my personal opinion, I think she still wants the throne. I still think she wants to rule Mandalore. And I think she can use the knowledge of her being the only one to know that mythosaur is down there compared to everyone else to her advantage.
Maybe. We'll see. I think what they're going to do is it's going to save them or from something, or not the mythosaur itself, but that knowledge of the mythosaur, right? Like maybe the covert turns on them, and then she's like, well, I got this information.
Right. I just go back to season 2 and the last episode, when Luke comes to rescue them and everything. And there's that interaction where Moff Gideon is talking to Din about the Darksaber and what it means. And then they pan over to Bo-Katan and she has this expression on her face, like, I want that saber. And, her being kind of emo and bummed out, lounging on her throne, talking about how no one wants to follow it, like everything's awry. It tells me that in the back of her head that she still wants it because she's still thinking about it, whether she wants to admit to it or not. But like you said, we'll just have to wait and see. So for this episode, just kind of thoughts on it. What are your overall opinions?
Of the chapter 18?
Yeah, just chapter 18.
Yeah, I just felt rushed, right? Like they get to Mandalore like right away. He already does the redemption stuff, which I thought would be more of it at the end of the episode. So, I thought it was average.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool to see Bo in action, kicking ass, right? I like to see that. But
I like seeing her wield the dark saber.
yeah,
And it was cool getting I mean, we'd already seen it in the trailers and everything, but seeing live action Mandalore and taking us back to the scenes that we had in, Clone Wars and Rebels through animation, it was really neat seeing that in live action. All right, so let's move on to the episode we just watched, which is chapter 19, The Covert. Longer episode. I think this one was 50 some minutes.
The Convert.
Or what? Yeah. Whoops. What I have typed, I have a typo here. I'm missing the end. Convert. Which I thought it was interesting. Does it not show you the name of the episode until you play it?
What? No, it was right up front.
Interesting. Because when I was in the app, it wasn't showing me the name of that episode. It just said chapter 19 until after I played it. But so this episode just picks up right where we left off in the previous one. Bo and Din are at the waters of Mandalore. Din kind of comes to and states that he has been redeemed. And Bo confirms this as she witnessed it. And then again, we already kind of spoke to this. She asked, did you see anything in there? Specifically, did you see anything that was alive? And Din was like, no, I just kind of saw, rubble before I was essentially knocked out. And then Din asked to be taken to a ship, which they are then attacked by TIE interceptors. And at this point, I thought this was awesome. I just seen kind of the
texted me, this is Star Wars.
Yeah, I texted Dustin right as this was going on. I'm like, this is Star Wars. Like, this is what I want to see. This dogfight of TIE interceptors. And first it was just Bo-Katan's ship. Din kind of takes the gun, is firing at them. And their plan is that they're going to fly over to Din's ship, drop Din over it, land gracefully or not on the platform, and he's going to take his ship to help Bo destroy it.
The plot armor is pretty heavy on this one.
Yeah, but that's expected.
I know.
That's kind of expected.
It just goes back into the that how bad stormtroopers are at aiming.
Well, and I love that they even play it out so much where they're talking about the damage they took on.
Yeah,
and Bo's like, just my shield. And Din's like, I didn't even get a scratch. Versus you just destroyed what, like 6 to 8 TIE interceptors. And Din's even like, man, these are a lot tougher than regular TIE fighters. And still, yet they do nothing. So they end up destroying these TIE interceptors, and they're kind of going back to Bo's palace. And they then see that these TIE bombers are now destroying Bo's palace or her home. And they give chase to these bombers, and then all of a sudden, they're vastly outnumbered by interceptors and bombers. So I don't know. They're like, yeah, we're just going to jump to light speed. There's no chance. I'm going to screw my home and get out of here. But and that was kind of, for the most part, it for Din's kind of story in this chapter. What were your thoughts of that this is kind of, for the most part, all we got of Din?
Well, I wasn't spoiled, but I kind of knew that this episode took a different turn.
Oh, how'd you know that?
I was talking to my buddy John.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, oh yeah, the episode, reminds me a lot of Andor. So I kind of knew like there's something different about it.
I even wrote that in my notes. I got some Andor vibes definitely from this episode. So from that, we kind of cut to Coruscant at night, and there's this event going on, or a gathering, and it's for the New Republic. And Dr. Pershing is talking about, or he's talking to this large New Republic audience, and he's talking about organ or cloning, specifically organ cloning, and how
Oregon cloning.
Yeah, because he was talking about organs.
We're only quoting people from Oregon.
Organ, Oregon. No.
Fire protection?
Yes. No, organ as in like heart, liver, stomach, those kind of organs. And how that research could have saved his mother. So he kind of gave a tragic story about how his mother passed and how it could have been saved through she could have been saved through his research. So now he's kind of dedicated his research, which was started by the Kamonians in their cloning, to helping the progress of science to help others.
Can I kind of cliff notes this middle part?
Mm-hmm.
Because not a lot happened in the middle part. I think we could summarize it pretty quick. So he meets a group of other.
Those are Imperials, right? They were former Imperials.
Amnesty people, right? So there's an amnesty program, which harkens back to World War II, right, with the Nazis.
Yep.
That amnesty program. So I think that's kind of cool parallel. But so they're kind of talking, and then he meets what's the old gal's name? It starts with an E.
Well, it was G68 was her reference number.
Yeah, which of course she was on Moff Gideon's ship.
Yep.
And we saw her. I mean, there was even that in the like what you missed kind of portion of the first part.
And I will say, I did write a note as we were at that part. I'm like, someone here is a spy, and I was thinking maybe not a spy, but like a mole type of a thing. Like something's just not sitting right about this situation, specifically.
I had bad vibes from her from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew something was right. Like she was being way too like pushy about his research.
Yep.
Right. So that's the thing. So, he's getting this feeling of like, oh my God, my research can help people. I should go do it. But he's hesitant to do it because he wants to, stay in the amnesty program. And she, pushes and prods him to do it. And so they go off and apparently the only place they can get a lab set up is, an Imperial ship. So they kind of do that
at a dump site, essentially.
Yeah. Which I find so stupid, the idea that there would be guards. Are you kidding me? There would be guards?
There would be higher security there for sure.
Yeah. So that was another thing. I'm like, what?
Which there was because this could have been a sting operation too.
It clearly was a sting operation.
Yes. So that could have been intentional.
Maybe. Yeah. Good point. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. So, but anyway, so she takes him through the ship, and then he finds the lab, and has a huge boner going through the lab. And
this is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah. And then kind of in between that, there's some sob stories about what it was like in the Empire. Oh, the whole amnesty program. They're kind of joking like this wouldn't be part of the Empire, or this isn't how the Empire does things. And but again, they get caught by the New Republic
police.
Yeah. And then of course she picks up the gear and walks away towards the soldiers. It's clear that she's,
betrayed him.
Yeah. And he freaks out. And then the next thing you see him, lying in the bed. And now he's part of that, that reintegration therapy or whatever they call it.
Which she then turns up the intensity knob because it's supposed to be a mind wipe instrument. But then, the New Republic's like, no, we don't use it for that. This is all good feelings. But
which again, you think you would turn that setting off, like put a governor on the thing.
Or someone at least guarding it.
Yeah. I thought it was funny they call it the Mind Flayer because that gave me Stranger Thing vibes.
Yeah. I texted you too. I definitely got Rick and Morty vibes with the tickets, please, droids.
Okay. So here's my question. I read an article through IGN as we were getting ready to start this podcast.
Yeah.
And it was about that scene, right? So I don't know if they make it clear that she's still with the Imperials. that was hard for me to understand what her motivations were, right? I thought maybe because she kept on mentioning like, oh, I must have passed her in the halls 150 times and blah blah blah. So I don't know if she has like some bad blood with him personally, but one thing that the article brought up is clearly his cloning program was a success because that's what allows Palpatine to stay alive, right? But what I don't understand is if she is an Imperial spy, why is she destroying his ability to continue that research? That makes no sense. If she's with Moff Gideon and trying to capture him again or get him out of the program and bring him back to the Imperials, why would she do what she did?
I think it depends on the strength of the mind wiping and like how far back does mind wiping go? Can you set it to like where it's just the past couple of days, couple of weeks? Because if he gets mind wiped to say like 2 years ago, he still has that research capability. And it actually predates him coming over to the New Republic, which almost puts him in a situation where he's more still in favor of the Empire and working for them.
Okay, she clearly had a lot of malice towards him. So there was some personal beef.
Yeah, and this is my personal opinion. I think she's a mole. If you think back to like Rebels, how we've seen like Sabine or Ezra be good guys, kind of infiltrate the Empire. I think this is kind of the reverse. And I think her loyalties are still to the Empire, and seeing what Pershing is doing or saying, especially to the New Republic, it's like it's triggering her and being like, this is not what we were meant, to do. We're here for the Empire. And so even though I don't know if she was captured or what her situation necessarily was that brought her to the New Republic, but I think she's a mole and she's upset at Pershing as being a traitor to the Empire and seeking her revenge through that. And what also makes me think that she's working with the Empire, or you never hear about the New Republic cloning anything. What after this story, so that would be like the sequel trilogy, would give insight to the New Republic using cloning versus we knowing that the First Order has cloning. So it just, go ahead.
Well, so again, one thing they mentioned in the article, so clearly his research was never completed because Palpatine was in that lifeless husk, right? And then that's why I had to go find Rey. But they kind of said what their thoughts were: if the Imperials can't have this technology, then no one can have this technology, and that's why she did what she did.
Yeah, and
which again makes no sense, like in the fact that clearly the New Republic didn't want him doing this anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
so,
and they made that clear in the
they
episode.
were eager to use it, so that doesn't make sense to me why she would do what she did. But
I think she's just doing it for the Empire still. But yeah, I agree. Like the New Republic doesn't want it to the most extent, maybe, creating cloned organs to help people that are, suffering or whatnot. But I don't think the New Republic has any intentions of cloning individuals, especially from the result of, clone troopers and us finding out, especially through Bad Batch, what happened to them, how they were treated, and just cloning in general. I don't think they look at that as like something that's morally right. So yeah, moving beyond the whole Dr. Pershing part, we do get a little bit more of Din and Bo-Katan at the end of the episode, maybe 5-10 minutes, where they
surprised by the way.
What's that?
That the episode hadn't ended, like when she started cranking up that dial. I thought that was going to end the episode.
Yeah, it probably would have been a good spot because we only got a couple minutes. And I do want to say, speaking of Andor, were those the same offices or some similar offices that security guy from Andor worked in?
So, what that vibe gave me was, have you seen that show on Apple TV with the guy from Parks and Rec? I'm trying to remember.
No.
That show was like critically acclaimed. I love that show. I thought it was right on the tip of my brain, which is funny because that's kind of what the show's about, is them taking out people's brain. But it reminded me of that, like that whole weird office scene, and the guy's basically just doing busy work.
Yeah. But that gave me the same Andor vibes to that security guy from Ferrex that gets brought, that's stalking or whatever, that Imperial lady. I can't remember her.
A lot of TPS reports in the
Deidre. Yeah, TPS reports. So maybe they'll cross paths. Who knows? Probably not, because Andor predates the show by quite a bit. But yeah. So to round it all out, Din and Bo and Grogu and R5 fly to the Armorer and their whole sect of the Mandalorian Creed, kind of where we saw that whole turtle, alligator, crocodile monster attack. And essentially he comes to proclaim to the Armorer that he has been redeemed. Bo-Katan is there to confirm it, and he also has evidence of it through like a memory vial, which reminds me of like Harry Potter, how they take those memories and put them in a vial and then pour it in. And the Armorer proclaims to Din that he has officially been redeemed. He's now part of the Mandalorian Creed again, and so is Bo-Katan, because she also walked in the waters and hasn't taken her helmet off since. Kind of curious where they're going to go with that, because I don't think Bo-Katan really has any interest in joining their sect of the Mandalorian Creed, but I think she's going to use that to her advantage at the moment or in the near future. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. And that's kind of how the episode ends. I think this one was also very much plot building, especially with all of what we saw with Dr. Parshing and the whole encounter with G68 and research facility stuff. I'm sure they're going to be releasing more answers on that as we get further into the season. But also very curious on what Bo-Katan and Din are going to do next. Because what is next for Din? He's now been redeemed. What's next for him?
A sitcom with Grogu.
This is where I think that they're going to get back into trying to uniting Mandalore. And there was a lot of emphasis from Bo-Katan about what the Empire has done to the Mandalorians. So I think there's going to be some kind of revenge that will take place, which could unite all creeds of the Mandalorians to fight against the Empire. So we'll kind of see. Any final thoughts on that episode, or what you're hoping to see in the rest of the season?
So I think you and I talked about this before, especially with Andor. If they're going to have filler episodes or filler moments, because I mean, obviously the beginning and the end were not filler; they were really part of the plot.
Yeah.
We have this.
I'll call it plot building.
Yeah, but if you're going to have that, I like when they go and they show how the other half lives, right? And they actually bring that story to life, that this is what happens when you have the Empire now collapsed and you have this amnesty program. Like, what happened to all those? I find that really fascinating, and I'm glad that they explain that in that way.
Yep.
And then they do that with the vehicle that you have this, G68, who's a spy, and she's got some hidden agenda that we're hopefully going to learn about. So I like that. I mean, I thought the episode was good. Honestly, I thought this episode was better than last episode, because last episode just kind of felt like it was just like the Angry Beavers episode. We're like, oh, and we're here.
Yeah, I mean, I did appreciate the plot building that they were doing this episode. It could have probably been wrapped up a little quicker in the whole Pershing G68 scenes. But one thing that I've really been enjoying that we've been getting through the Bad Batch and this show now, and so much in Andor, is the Empire and what their current state, I guess, at different times in the timeline, because this is further on from Andor, but what's going on with the Empire. And that's been very fascinating to me, because that's a story we really haven't been given too much of in all the other content we have. So, and this is leading me to believe that you're getting more of that story as it pertains to a different group of people, meaning the Mandalorians versus like the Republic or whatnot. Because I know the New Republic was a main focus in this episode and how it relates to the Empire or taking in, like you were saying, like the prisoners and everything. But I think it's going to shift back to Mandalore and how the Empire interacts or is perceived by the Mandalorians. So I'm definitely curious to see what's going to play out there. But I will say seeing Coruscant is always great. The CGI it was good, but it was definitely, you could tell that it was fake. I wish there was something better that they can do. They're still doing that technology where it's the screen around them, right? In the production or the filming.
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure it is. And sometimes I wish they would do away with that. It's cool what they can do with it because it allows the actors and actresses to kind of interact more with what's around them. But it appears to be a little more fake looking, but that's okay. Again, it's still entertainment, and still enjoying what we're getting. Anything else on the episode or the show in general?
Just glad to have Mandalorian back. It's been a long wait. I'm really enjoying it so far.
And I think we're going to get something major coming up in the next couple episodes. I have a feeling, especially with the mythosaur kind of cameo type of thing.
Yeah.
So we will wrap up our Mandalorian talk and we will dive into our bracket challenges. So again, our newest one is finding what the best video game is for Star Wars, or what fans feel is the best video game. And our next two matchups, the first one, matchup number 9, put up the number 1 seed of Knights of the Old Republic versus Battle Pod. And this was definitely a one-way swing in terms of who people voted for or what game people voted for. And it was Knights of the Old Republic. Just dominated. I think that was expected. Again, it's the 1 seed and probably one of the most loved games of Star Wars. And our good old friend Britton writes, I see KOTOR going all the way. Probably I may not always vote for it, but its story, our introduction to Revan, the great cast and characters, and the well put together D20 system with Star Wars makes it memorable and fun to play. I captured so much of the galaxy, so Jedi, Force, lightsabers, blasters, scoundrels, starships, etc., and remained entertaining. And I would have to believe you probably voted for this one, right, Dustin? Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
I did
don't
too.
know if it'll win because, it's an older game and there's now newer technology. Like, Jedi Fallen Order is pretty freaking good, but
yeah, but there is a strong following for it though too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to give a shout out to Britton. It was pretty cool. He sent I don't know if you saw it, the picture of him at the Disney park with the Millennium Falcon in the background, listening to, or he showed his phone listening to our podcast, and I thought that was pretty awesome. And appreciate you, Britton. Thanks for all that you do and all your insight. And our next matchup, number 10, which put the 16 seed Super Star Wars Trilogy versus number 17 Squadrons. And this was a close one. Only 4 votes separated the two. And Super Star Wars Trilogy will defeat Squadrons.
I voted for Squadrons.
I did too. I voted for Squadrons as well.
It was kind of, Rogue Squadron was way better.
Oh yeah. Squadrons was good, but it wasn't great. I honestly ended up stopped playing like early on, maybe a third of the way through. I'm like, I'm done with this one. It's just Battlefront all over again, just the ships and everything. So yes, we'll have Knights of the Republic moving on and Super Star Wars Trilogy, which groups up all 3 of the Super Nintendo Star Wars games. So Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Again, we're grouping all games under a single franchise tag or franchise name within one. So that will move on. And then looking to next week's matchups, we'll have number 8, the Old Republic, not to be mistaken by Knights of the Old Republic. This is just the Old Republic versus the number 25 seed Lethal Alliance, which made its way through the qualification round. And then matchup number 12 is number 9 Rogue Squadron series. So we were just talking about that, not to be confused with Squadrons. This is the Rogue Squadrons that you know from Nintendo 64 versus number 24 Obi-Wan. So we'll put those polls out. Give us your votes, insight, opinions, all that. If we like what you provide, we'll bring it to the show. Yeah, so that's kind of wrapping up most of what we had. Do you have anything else you want to bring to the table or discuss? I know it's getting late already, so we're probably going to be wrapping this up pretty quick, but
Yeah, I gotta go hit up a darkness retreat so I can make my life decisions.
he's talking about Aaron Rodgers. So
Who's he?
I have nothing against Aaron Rodgers. I think this is all being overblown or like
okay, whatever, man. No,
media by the media. You don't think so?
He literally went on the Pat McAfee show to utilize like the media that he agrees with, and I love the Pat McAfee show. I'm just saying.
Did you listen to it?
Perpetuates this drama.
Did you listen to the Pat McAfee show?
No, I didn't have time, but
I did.
And I don't want to get into it. I'm kind of tired of it, and so are the Packers. Clearly, they would rather get rid of him than keep playing a future Hall of Fame quarterback.
I think they caught wind that he was going to retire because that was what he said. He said that he's pretty much known. It's been 90-10 of retiring versus.
I don't believe anything that he says.
Why not? Why?
I listened to him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was like, this guy just seems like just so out of touch.
I do believe he does sound a little off. There's something off about him, but he is also very methodical in what he says. And
not on the Joe Rogan show, I'm like, man, this guy's all over the place. He's probably on magic mushrooms or something.
I just think he gets a worse rep because of the media and the position he's in.
I couldn't disagree more, but that'll be for a later podcast.
We'll agree to disagree on that. But as it relates to anything Star Wars, I'm surprised you haven't even said anything about your Battlehawks that you got to go see the other weekend.
38,000 people at an alternative football game, which is pretty fucking awesome. And they won, and it was nuts. It just reminded me a lot of when the Rams were good.
Good old Rams, right?
Now they're going to be bad for a while, so it's going to be interesting to see how LA.
Oh, the Rams or the Battlehawks?
No, the Rams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean they.
Yeah, they sold out for that one Super Bowl, and then now they're at the other end of that.
Chickens are coming home to roost.
Yep.
I mean, same thing. I don't want to pick on the Rams.
Yeah, you do.
That's what happened. No, I really don't. Like, I want to see him not do well, but all I'm saying is like the Blues kind of did the same thing, right? And when you have a salary cap sport, there's always hell to pay.
Salary cap.
I do find that funny. Like you see, like, oh, this guy restructures contract, and now they have
to bonuses.
It's like what? There's no
such thing as salary cap if you can just restructure.
Hockey you can do is apparently just absolutely abuse the LTIR system. They should make that where, like, if you put a guy on LTIR, he cannot be eligible for the playoffs. That's how they do in baseball. If you're on the 60-day IL and you're not like back by this time, you cannot.
You don't qualify for making it.
That's a simple fix.
I feel like there's so many simple fixes that they can do in sports, but they don't want to because it would impact the.
But it's not that they don't want to. It's CBA stuff, right? So these things are all collectively bargained, and the players aren't going to want to agree with that unless they get something back in return, and so the owners don't even pursue it. So and quite honestly, the owners probably kind of like it in the back of their head because then now we could stash a player and have a better chance at winning. The Lightning used it quite egregiously a couple years ago.
Yeah, but I can agree that's kind of how it goes. But yeah, so we will wrap that up for this week's episode. Just to give Dustin's given the wrap up slide signal.
Wrap it up, box.
Just to give a shout out to our social media handles. So you can find us on Twitter at DeblockAA23pod, on Instagram at detention_block_AA_23, and then our Facebook group and YouTube channels named Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. Bring us your likes, comments, subscriptions, follows, downloads, all of that, especially the reviews. Give us I'm asking for the 5-star reviews, not telling you to give us the 5-star reviews, but those reviews go a long way, and getting our podcast out there impacts the algorithms on, how our podcast title gets exposed out to all of the listeners. So anything you can do, we greatly appreciate. So looking forward to another episode of Mandalorian in a week. We will catch up on Bad Batch. I might do a special side recording. It might just be me, or if anyone else can join along on the most recent episode of Bad Batch, but then we'll talk Mandalorian and Bad Batch again next week. A lot to look forward to. Star Wars Celebration coming up. So excited. And we now have another book we need to read. So we'll get on that, right, Dustin?
I'm going to download it tomorrow.
You got it. And March Madness is here. So good luck to all those that do brackets. Have fun. My Longhorns are a 2 seed, and I'm looking forward to watch them. But we will wrap that up. We are Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Michael Mudge, joined by Dustin DeFranco. Thanks for tuning in this evening. Looking forward to talking to you guys next week. And as always, may the Force be with you. I love that it muted on that, so I caught nothing.
And also the Battlehawks.
There you go. Your wife said you're only allowed a certain amount of cacao a day now, so I think you're
Correct.
surprised.